April 25, 1947. The small Siberian town of Uzur lay under a gray sky, the air heavy with coal smoke and the sharp bite of frost. In this remote settlement, carved out of the endless Russian steppe, Tamara Samsonova was born. Her childhood was framed by scarcity and the weight of Soviet life. Neighbors remembered her family as quiet, keeping to themselves, with a little girl who was studious but oddly detached. Unlike other children who played in the dusty yards, Tamara was more often seen alone, scribbling in notebooks, her gaze turned inward. Teachers described her as intelligent, especially gifted with languages. By the time she was a teenager, she had already decided she would escape the confines of Siberia. Moscow called to her, a city of opportunity, of culture, of anonymity. When she moved there in her youth, she studied at the Moscow State Linguistic University, mastering English and German. To many, it seemed like the beginning of a bright, ordinary life. After graduation, she relocated to St. Petersburg, then called Leningrad. There, she worked at a travel agency, a respectable career in the Soviet Union. She married, settled into an apartment on Dmitrov Street, and for a time seemed like a woman who had achieved what she wanted: stability, education, and a new life far from her provincial roots. But the cracks appeared quietly. Her husband mysteriously vanished in the early 2000s. No one knew what happened to him. There were no police reports made public, no formal search that ever reached the headlines. He was simply gone, absorbed into the shadows of her life. For neighbors, it was just one of the many odd things about Tamara. She remained in the same apartment, a solitary figure. Those who lived nearby would later describe her as eccentric, polite on the surface, but distant, with an unsettling energy they couldn't quite put their finger on. As the years passed, Samsonova supplemented her pension by taking in lodgers. St. Petersburg, with its canals and crumbling beauty, was full of drifters, workers, and students needing cheap rooms. To them, she seemed like an unassuming grandmother. Few could have imagined that behind her kindly facade lurked impulses so dark they would earn her the chilling nicknames: the Granny Ripper, the Cannibal Granny, and, whispered by some in Russia, Baba Yaga. In July 2015, the quiet facade of Samsonova's life began to unravel. Police were called to investigate the disappearance of her 79-year-old friend and neighbor, Valentina Ulanova. Valentina had let Tamara stay in her apartment for some time. But soon, disputes began between the two women. Neighbors heard arguments, petty at first, escalating into something darker. Then, Valentina vanished. The first sign of horror came from a grim discovery near a pond in the Frunzensky district of St. Petersburg. A headless, limbless torso, wrapped in a shower curtain, had been dumped there. It belonged to an elderly woman. Soon, body parts were found scattered around the area, stuffed into black plastic bags. The brutal dismemberment stunned investigators. It didn't take long for suspicion to turn toward Tamara. Surveillance footage captured her dragging heavy black bags out of the building. Despite her frail, grandmotherly frame, she was seen struggling down the stairs with packages large enough to conceal human remains. The sight was haunting: a stooped old woman carrying the weight of death in ordinary garbage bags. When police searched Samsonova's flat, what they found was even more disturbing. Her kitchen bore traces of blood. Tools that could be used for dismemberment were present. And then came the discovery that would seal her infamy: a diary. Inside this diary, written in Russian, German, and English, were chilling entries. She had kept notes of her daily life, but scattered among the mundane details were confessions, cold, matter-of-fact descriptions of murders. She recorded the killings of multiple victims, describing how she drugged them, killed them, dismembered them, and in some cases, hinted at cannibalism. One entry described how she cut up a lodger and boiled his remains. Another spoke of scattering body parts across St. Petersburg. Investigators began to piece together a horrifying pattern. Samsonova was not just a murderer of one. She was potentially a serial killer with a history stretching back years, maybe even decades. The disappearance of her husband suddenly loomed large in investigators' minds. Could he have been her first victim? Her diary suggested as many as 11 killings, though not all could be proven. Some entries were vague, referencing nameless men she had taken in as lodgers, who then disappeared. She wrote of poisoning them with drugs she obtained, of strangling them, of cutting them to pieces. The diary, later leaked to the media, shocked the Russian public. This quiet grandmother had been living a double life, part neighborly pensioner, part predator. The macabre nature of her crimes earned her the moniker Cannibal Granny. Rumors swirled that she had not only dismembered her victims, but had also cooked and consumed parts of them. While not every claim was verified, her writings strongly hinted at cannibalistic rituals. For many Russians, this immediately evoked a figure from folklore, Baba Yaga. The ancient witch of Slavic legend, Baba Yaga lived in the deep forest, luring victims to her hut on chicken legs, and was known for devouring humans. Media outlets, seizing on the eerie parallel, began calling Samsonova a real-life Baba Yaga, an old woman hiding monstrous appetites behind the mask of age. When Samsonova was arrested, her demeanor was as chilling as her crimes. In custody, she smiled for cameras, blew kisses to reporters, and appeared disturbingly calm. When asked about the murders, she confessed without hesitation, saying she deserved to be punished. She even told police she had been preparing for this moment for years. Neighbors were horrified. Some remembered her as a polite, if distant woman who occasionally chatted in the courtyard. Others recalled the strange smells from her flat, or her odd, brooding presence. In hindsight, many wondered how such horrors could have been hiding in plain sight. Her trial revealed more details. The court declared her mentally ill, suffering from paranoid schizophrenia. She was deemed unfit for a standard prison sentence and instead committed indefinitely to a psychiatric institution. The case transfixed Russia and the world. Here was a woman in her late 60s, frail, grandmotherly, seemingly harmless, revealed to be one of the most bizarre serial killers in recent memory. Her diary, filled with half-confessions, became a window into her fractured mind. Was she truly a cannibal, or had her mental illness created delusions she wrote down as fact? Even now, the full truth is uncertain. But what is certain is that she killed Valentina Ulanova. That crime was undeniable, proven by evidence, surveillance footage, and her own confession. As for the rest, her husband, her other alleged victims, the answers remain in the pages of her diary and in the silence of the missing. The legend of Baba Yaga has haunted Slavic culture for centuries. An old crone living at the edge of civilization, feared for her appetite for human flesh. In Tamara Samsonova, many saw that legend made flesh. She became a modern monster cloaked in the ordinary guise of a grandmother. Today, she remains confined in a psychiatric facility, where she is likely to spend the rest of her life. At the time of her sentencing, she expressed no remorse, only relief, as if being caught had finally ended a long, hidden cycle. Tamara Samsonova's story is a reminder of how evil can lurk in the most unexpected places, not in the dark alleys or the distant forests of folklore, but behind the walls of an ordinary apartment block, next door to unsuspecting neighbors. To this day, Russians speak of her with a shudder, not just as the Granny Ripper or the Cannibal Granny, but as the Baba Yaga of St. Petersburg, a living ghost story, a real monster who turned myth into reality. If you found this story chilling, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more true crime mysteries.